almost like the Flashpoint, where it starts, one of the key matrix lines that will help shatter this status centralized system.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Thursday, June 28th, 2012, and if you watched my breaking news on the Supreme Court ruling regarding the Affordable Health Care Act, you realize that today marks the death of America. I have had a few hours to soak it in, analyze information, read opinions, scan through the actual opinions from the Supreme Court justices, and well, my original reaction stands, basically, that the Supreme Court has ruled that Congress can do basically anything as long as they deem it a tax. There are a few articles defending Chief Justice Roberts, and let's take a look at some of those. I find them to be partially correct, but at the same time laughable in regards to our liberties. George Will writes, Conservatives' Consolation Prize. Charles Hurt of the Washington Times writes, the silver lining, now Obama owns his tax hikes. So now they're saying those that will defend this government to the death, instead of plainly stating that the federal government is out of control and needs to be reined in no matter who's at the helm, they're now saying that this is a decision that champions individual liberty and upholds the Constitution because Justice Roberts struck down the Commerce Clause defense of the individual mandate, which was the basic argument the Obama administration was making. They never made an argument that this was a tax and should be treated as such, even though the IRS had already begun staffing for it and arming themselves in preparation. If it wasn't a tax, why the Internal Revenue Service prepping for this? But it was never argued as a tax. It was argued as something that Congress could regulate due to the Commerce Clause, which regulates interstate commerce. Justice Roberts wrote the opinion that since this is not Congress regulating an existing act of commerce, they're instead creating a new act of commerce to simply regulate, it does not fall under that classification, which in one way, yes, states that, well, they do not have unlimited power to do whatever they want. No, they just have to name it a tax, and they can do whatever they want. Basically, Chief Justice Roberts states that healthcare, health insurance, is in direct connection with the welfare of the country. Individuals' health directly affects the welfare of everyone else in this country. The only way that happens is if we have government-run healthcare in the first place. There you go. Chief Justice Roberts, while he may have upheld the Constitution, he also stated, one way or another, that healthcare is a right. Because if it is a right, then the government has a right to force you, tax you, to make it fair and equitable. I state the government doesn't have a right to tax any of our income at all. But will a conservative make that argument? No, I think not. Because the government, no matter who's in charge, will never cede the power to tax. Ever. This is a decision that emboldens the two-party system. Mitt Romney gains traction. His supporters get a fire in their belly. Obama gets to claim victory. All the while, this little caveat to throw in the face of us constitutionalists saying, What are you talking about? The Constitution was upheld. No, it wasn't. They're still judging on case law, which is wrong. It shouldn't matter political activism in our Supreme Court because there should be no liberal justices or conservative justices. They should all be constitutional justices, but they aren't. Ever since Harvard and Columbia Law stopped teaching constitutional law and started teaching case law, well, the laws and the interpretation of our Constitution has changed as man has changed. Man is sinful. Man will never get it right. The closest we got was the Constitution. This little thing right here. But we no longer use this. We use stacks and stacks and stacks of cases that set precedents. And well, a precedent has been set. But there are conspiracies abounding, and they're not coming from Alex Jones or myself or any other alternative news source. They're coming from people like Michael Savage and law professors and economics professors Brad DeLong and Paul Campos. They wrote on abcnews.com, did Justice Roberts change his Obamacare vote at the last minute? They did an analysis of the opinions, both dissenting and in favor of ruling opinions, and they found some inconsistencies that have no precedence in opinions. And basically, they have come to the conclusion that, well, Justice Roberts changed his mind at the last minute in order to prevent the public and the Democrats from claiming it was a political, partisan decision, that the parties drove the decision. And, well, that sounds about right. But then you have this from Michael Savage. Roberts' epilepsy medication affects his cognition. He said, quote, "Let's talk about Roberts. I'm going to tell you something you're not going to hear anywhere else that you must pay attention to. It's well known that Roberts, unfortunately for him, has suffered from epileptic seizures. Therefore, he has been on medication. Therefore, neurologists will tell you that medication used for seizure disorders, such as epilepsy, can introduce mental slowing, forgetfulness, and other cognitive problems." And if you look at Roberts' writings, you can see the cognitive disassociation in what he is saying. I don't know. I do know that pharmaceutical drugs can lead people to do some pretty crazy things. A dissent against the Constitution, that's a possibility. Either way, this has become the political story of the rest of the year. The campaign will be, elect me, I'm Romney, I'll repeal Obamacare on day one, which he cannot do on his own. And from the Obama camp, it will be, you need to elect me in order to preserve this historic win for the little man. Don't fool yourself. My insurance has already gone up in the last 2 years. Yours has too. And guess what? This does not mean the uninsured get health insurance. This means the uninsured must now buy health insurance and pay private companies. So yes, private corporations are on the receiving end of attacks from our government. More collusion from a corporate fascist state. This is not America. It hasn't been for quite some time. Remember, the first American Revolution was started because of a tax. The Supreme Court today decided that the individual mandate is a tax. Let the revolution begin. I pray that it will be a revolution fought on the battleground of intellect and logic. But with the history of our government, it won't stay there for very long. Because governments know one thing, and that is force. Do your research, read all the opinions, and sit back and watch the fireworks, because things are about to get interesting. Watch my initial response. It was full of emotion, and I think you might enjoy it. But we'll be back tomorrow with our Finance Friday edition. Jay-Z signing off for Flashpoint Radio, saying God bless. Keep your eyes to the sky.